Art grew up on this.
What I want to
We're just,
is he come back up and all it all.
yeah, I got me. Sounds like you found a good, retirement. Did you hear what he's doing? Got a, he's Mr. Personality, so he's got a neighbor down there. Hell, he might live 10 miles away. I don't know, but he said somebody he knows runs has a house on the lake, but also has a place, I don't know where it's in Midland, Odessa, I think it.
Oh, yes, yes.
You have better Facebook than I am, so.
Probably need to find somebody.
Oh, wait, there's
She doesn't know much about that? Facebook, just maybe.
Wait, there's one. Yes.
We know,
Yeah, maybe you should check with John Zeitlin, because I think he knows somebody.
How you doing, buddy?
And if he doesn't, I bet you can find somebody.
So I went ahead and invested.
I love him.
So, in the,
But yeah, so I don't.
yeah, I like it a lot.
More this weekend, because Brad's out
Well,
of town.
I'll hook up with you. I don't know about,
Yeah, I got you.
let me check the rest of this week.
I'm trying to sneak by left here.
Watch it.
I was trying to block
Don't slow
it
me
out.
down then.
I have a,
Trying to keep you away.
I have a funny
Definitely.
feeling Brad's right eye is bruised right now. Just get him with the.
Yeah, exactly.
I took me out, I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, okay. I was like, uh-oh. So this time. My battery. Plug it if I need to.
You gotta ask him about, he's like, she's like, Andy. Yeah.
Here.
The big contractor comes up, he's just, take my money. Sir? Oh, he said to me, but I've never heard before.
Oh my gosh.
Oh. He was a trip.
Oh my. Wow.
Yeah.
So, can we get up?
No. you can make it. And then they have an attorney here. The attorney doesn't have a normal time. None of that's true. Lord.
Wait, that's awesome.
Oh, it was just a good one.
All right, I'm gonna go watch that. That's awesome.
Didn't take 3 hours like O'Malley or anything, it was just 45 minutes.
Fashion change.
Neither.
I didn't know I had weapons in there. I was like, oh, where are the weapons?
Waiting on Adrian.
I got it, thank you very much.
That's unusual. Usually not waiting.
You about ready?
No, he's not.
Oh. We can get sheet copy? sheet?
So,
Put it up on the. Got me a computer screen? Okay.
I gotta be happy to get a phone address. My sister.
give us just a second.
Yeah, good. We're all good, buddy.
Adrian, you want us to wait a minute? Because we'll be there nearly immediately. You need the material for the second agenda item? Oh, yeah, okay. All right, then we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to call the regular city council meeting of the city of Colleyville to order on August the 6th at whatever time it is. Get my watch out here. 7:36, so we're now in session. And let me first call the roll. Councilmember Nakamura is out of town, so she's not going to be here tonight. Mayor Pro Tem Lindamood.
Here.
Councilmember Wheat.
Here.
The mayor is here. Councilmember Dodson.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Rigney.
Here.
Thank you very much. So Pastor Jeff Strickling from the Journey Church is going to give us our invocation today. We appreciate you being here. If we'd all stand with me, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let us pray. Father God, we thank you so much for the incredible city that we live in and this leadership. Father, we know that we are where we are as a community because of your faithfulness. I ask that you would be with our first responders and their families as they serve our city. We ask that you would keep them safe. Father, I ask that you would be with our mayor and our city council as they govern and lead this community and all that you have for it. I ask that you would give them godly wisdom and direction. Thank you for your faithfulness to them and to each and every one of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome you to the meeting tonight. Thank you for coming. We love it when people come and participate. We have several items on the agenda tonight that will have public hearings, and I would encourage anyone to speak at those hearings that we'd like to. There's cards in the back. There's agendas in the back so you can tell where we're at. And there's also cards that if you want to speak, if you'd fill those out, we'd appreciate it. Lets us know that you want to speak, but I will not close a public hearing without asking if everyone has spoken that would like to speak. So again, thank you for being here tonight. So we will move to agenda item number 2, which is reading and public hearing of a resolution approving action coming out of executive session. We just came out of executive session. We always do that immediately before this meeting. And tonight we do have some action to take. We discuss items back there, but we do not vote on anything in the executive session. We do it here publicly. Do you have what you need, Adrian? Okay, so Adrian's going to, let me let me go ahead and read the resolution, then you can brief us. So this is Resolution R-19-4405, a resolution approving council action regarding executive session items at the regular city council meeting of August 6, 2019. Whereas following discussion in executive session and in full accordance with the requirements of the Open Meetings Act, the city council determines that the following action is in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Now therefore be it resolved by the city council of the city of Colleyville, Texas. Section 1, that the city council hereby authorizes and approves an economic development reimbursement grant incentive agreement with Leading Edge Claims Service in an amount not to exceed $5,500 for landscape improvements to the property located at 4508 Colleyville Boulevard. The city council further authorizes an additional reimbursement grant amount not to exceed $3,000 for additional exterior improvements to the property, provided the additional improvements to the property are valued in excess of $10,000 on or before December 31, 2019. The city manager or his designee is authorized to execute all documents necessary to effectuate the foregoing economic development incentive agreement. Section 2, that the city council hereby authorizes and approves an economic development reimbursement grant incentive agreement for the Stone House Restaurant and Wine Bar for exterior improvements to the property located at 5201 Colleyville Boulevard, referred to as the property. The total reimbursement amount shall not exceed $100,000 and shall be conditioned upon the exterior improvements on the property being valued at not less than 3 times the total amount of the reimbursement grant to be paid. The city manager or his designee is authorized to execute all documents necessary to effectuate the foregoing economic development incentive agreement. And it is so resolved. So Adrian's going to tell us about this.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Adrienne Lothry, Assistant City Manager. Very excited to share with you the 2 best grant applications that we discussed in executive session and to share these with the community. For those that aren't familiar, our Best Grant program is one of our economic development programs that is really intended to help beautify our commercial corridor and help financially participate in some of those property improvements. So these can be, large or smaller scale projects. It can range from building facade improvements, roof improvements, parking lots, landscaping, signage, really anything and everything that beautifies the property, provides that additional investment into the corridor. And, the goal here is that as the roadway comes to a conclusion at the end of the State Highway 26 construction project, that our businesses along the corridor also take this, last remaining months time period to really help all those businesses and properties look their best. And we have a beautiful new roadway, and our businesses have the chance to be updated and put a fresh face forward as well. So tonight, as you read in the resolution, we've got a couple of grant applications that we have for approval, and I wanted to share a couple of those images that I think do a good job of demonstrating the property. So Leading Edge Claims is a property that is just on the southern end of the corridor, just north of where Brahms, most people are probably familiar with, that's located. And this is a primary landscaping improvement project. They tend to do quite a bit of work along the front and sides of their building, directly facing State Highway 26, trimming up trees, doing some landscaping and tree replacement. But really spending some money to reinvest in that property from a beautification and landscaping perspective. So this particular Best Grant would be a little bit on our smaller scale, but again, we mold the program to fit all sorts of different property improvements and business needs. The other grant that I have to share with you this evening is the Stone House. And this property, most people are familiar with, is actually just directly across from the village of Colleyville here over at Thompson Terrace and State Highway 26. Most people drive by, they're probably familiar with the stone or rock house, as a lot of people call it. And this is actually in the works to be a restaurant and wine bar. We're very excited about that. We think this is a great use of a unique property in Colleyville to provide kind of a unique dining opportunity. Really neat use of a key intersection here in the community. The concept is just beautiful. I'll share just a couple of images. They've got a beautiful outdoor patio planned, but really, really high-class facility. Casual dining and concept, still very family-friendly, but beautiful intentions of what they'd like to do here. Really nice patio concept, and utilizing that property in, I think, a unique and very exciting way. But wanted to share those images to go with the executive resolution that you just read, Mayor.
Very good. Council, have any comments or questions?
I'd just like to say thank you to the people that are taking advantage of this. I mean, our corridor is going to look beautiful as we've gone along. And hats off to the Pardos. They're spending almost $1 million to make this facility look as nice, and I'm proud to partner with them, or give my vote to partner with them in this adventure.
It'll be a very unique location with the Stone House. I think it'll
Sure will.
turn out very nice. Any other comments or questions? If not, because we had discussed this in the executive session, so we've already discussed it quite a bit, I'm going to open a public hearing. Public hearing is open. I have no cards because you didn't even know we were going to have this on the agenda tonight. But if you'd like to speak on it, please don't hesitate to raise your hand, and you're welcome to do that. I see no one indicating they want to speak, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. A motion would be in order.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve Resolution R-19-4405.
A second.
Have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Lindemood, a second by Council Member Dodson. So would you open the vote, please? You may show it when it's ready. And that resolution, just can't see the name for some reason, but it's unanimous. Motion to approve, the resolution is approved. Thank you very much. So we will now move to agenda item number 3, which is announcements, proclamations, and presentations. We do have several announcements, as we always do. And I'll start off regarding 26. If you hopefully have seen the signs along 26, the There's going to be a traffic switch tomorrow. The lanes on the east side from McCain to Church Street are completed, and so that traffic is going to move, northbound traffic is going to move to those east lanes starting tomorrow. And so we look forward to that. So, you know, it takes a day for that to settle out, but be aware of that. Also, in our July the 2nd City Council meeting, we had Min Tran here, who is the area engineer responsible for the Highway 26 project, and he presented to us. We'd asked a number of questions we really didn't get answers to my satisfaction. I sent a letter to him, copied our representatives, both Commissioner Fickus and Giovanni and Beverly Powell, kind of repeating some of the questions that we would like to get answers to. And he did give us some answers July the 30th, which is when I asked him to do that. Some of them were still pretty vague. So to further that along, we're setting up a meeting with the district engineer to discuss some of those questions. And so if you heard that, you would know what I'm talking about. But the things that we'd like to talk about is the milestone management, and here's the schedule. The only thing that we did learn when Min presented to us was that the original schedule for 26 was to be completed December of this year. And so he said that's going to be pushed out into the spring of 2020. And so we didn't really get very good satisfaction on why that's true. Our engineering staff believes it can be done by the end of the year. I'd like to see that happen, so we're doing everything we can to help facilitate that if at all possible. So just wanted to update. I've been updating people on Highway 26 and what's going on there, so there's a lot of questions about that. I will say, since he was here, I got to admit that the activity on 26 has speeded up quite a lot. The last section of pavement down in front of Whole Foods has been moving very rapidly, and they're going to be pouring that concrete pretty soon, which does reinforce with me, well, like our engineering staff says, I think they could actually make it by the end of the year. Of course, that's very important to us because once the state project completes, and the last phase of that, by the way, is doing the medians, then we're picking up at that point and have our own project to do quite a bit of work in the medians and at some key intersections to kind of beautify the area. So we need this coordinated pretty closely for it to go smoothly. So we want that to happen. You want to say anything else about all that?
No, I just, I echo your comments, Mayor, that since you've ramped up the pressure, it seems like there's a notable difference in the contractor's work product. So let's hope it continues.
Yep.
I have an announcement, just a little thing that the city and the police department, the GCISD are working together, that the school security plan ready for implementation. The police department has finalized our school security plan for the 2019 and 2020. And we're ready for school to begin in a couple of weeks. I know my kids are not really ready for that, but hey, you know, Tammy's ready for them to go. Yeah, I am too. Our plan is undertaken in cooperation with the GCISD staff and involves multiple facets of visible police presence. The plan includes all aspects of school, safety, traffic management, crossing guard placement, and officer interaction. The department will be doing PSAs via social media to prepare for the start of school. Our community's children are our greatest asset, I agree. The Colleyville Police Department and GCISD are committed to their safety first. So I'll tell Reagan, you know, hey, get ready, it's coming. Go give Chief a little hard time. He always gives her one, so. He loves to see her. And it's great that we see our police presence already there, and especially Chief, you're all over the place. We appreciate you guys being so interactive with our children like that. Thank you.
And in kind of the same vein, I have an announcement about the Fort Worth Symphony Orchestra has confirmed with the city. Staff received confirmation that Colleyville Heritage High School will partner with the city of Colleyville to host the Fort Worth Symphony Orchestra. The concert will take place on Friday, February 21st, 2020. We are finalizing the contract with the Fort Worth Symphony Orchestra over the coming weeks and intend to use the hotel occupancy tax funds for this event. Bringing this type of talent to Colleyville will provide a fantastic opportunity to experience the arts and put Colleyville on the map as a city focused on all areas of exceptionalism.
And we really appreciate GCISD letting us use the auditorium. And I
Absolutely.
think it'll be fun.
Be great.
Any others?
Sorry about that. I was getting some clarification. I wanted to do a quick update on some of the local road work we've got going on. And for those of you that live over on the west side of the city?
Yep.
Is that where it is? West? That's where I live. Might not be my strong suit directions. But McDonald School Road's been undergoing a resurfacing project, and that is coming to a conclusion, and it's great. So if you haven't driven over there recently, I highly recommend it. And I would also, it's great now, you should give it a try.
I think I'll make a trip.
You should. And also on McDonald School Road, there's an entry point into Colleyville off of Precinct Line, and there's a really great sign there that's got some new beautification, some new not trees, but bushes, and some great plants that have been planted in that area as well. So just a nice addition to that great new road. And now that the county that's been helping us with McDonald School Road is finished over there, they're moving over to Bransford, and you've probably noticed that's begun construction. So that'll be under construction for another couple weeks. They're keeping it open,
Yes.
yeah, at least one way, and it won't be finished until after school starts. So just something to be aware of if you've got to drive that direction as school gets underway.
Yeah, thank you, Gary Fickus, for helping us out in this.
Yes.
Yep, yeah,
Yeah, that's
good.
it's been great and certainly a big improvement on the west side. I'm going to talk about the fire department CPR training and blood drive. The fire department successfully completed its first CPR certification class this past week. 7 seventh graders, just happened to be 7, 7 seventh graders were able to gain their certifications through the American Red Cross. Congratulations to them, and a huge thanks to Captain Daniel Torti for serving as the instruction leader. Also, coming up, the fire department will be providing a community CPR class on September 14th from 9 to 10:30 a.m. The course will provide participants an opportunity to learn and practice hands-only CPR and AED use. And I'll say that my wife and I took advantage of the last class, and we were very impressed. My wife is an RN, a retired RN, and the new CPR approach is so much simpler than the old CPR approach. And I would indicate or suggest that everyone that has an opportunity to take advantage of this, do so. It's no more breathing, it's all hands activity. And it has saved a half a dozen lives, by the way, in the city by people starting CPR immediately and not waiting until the fire department gets there. We're very, very blessed to have the fire department and them doing the training for us. It's very, very important.
Okay, I'm going to try to say this and not make too many mistakes. This is an update about mosquito arborovirus reporting. It's amazing to report that Tarrant County has reported only one mosquito test pool positive for West Nile this year, which means they've only found one instance of West Nile virus in Tarrant County. And with all the rain this year, that certainly is extraordinary.
Sure is. Yep. And it was in Colleyville, by the way.
Yes.
I'm excited to announce that the field improvements are coming to City Park. The City Park baseball backstops on field 4 through 7 have been raised 8 feet from their original height. This project will help make the quad area of City Park a little safer and help to prevent the frequency of foul balls from entering the spectator areas. Additionally, baseball field rehabilitation is underway at City Park on baseball fields 4, 5, and 6. The infields will be completely cut out and removed. The infields will be laser graded and filled with premium clay. The sod will be replaced and conditioner will be tilled into the infield. This rehabilitation will remove any lips on the field as well as help the fields drain properly. This project will provide a safe playing surface for the kids. The rehabilitation project will be completed just in time for the Colleyville Baseball Association to begin their fall season at the end of August. I know a lot of families will be excited to see that when they show up.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
Very good. That all the announcements? Okay, then it's, now we'll have two proclamations to do, and it's my pleasure to recognize the Lions Club. So Stan Hall, if you'll meet me down front, we'll do that. So, yeah. Come on up, everyone. Yes. Love for you to do that. So, the Lions Club does great work in this community. It has for years and years, and we appreciate everything that you do. And I'll let you talk about the donation that have made here, if you would. Sure.
We'll just wait till everybody gets up here. So
You can come around on the back side, right?
okay.
David, it's like I got it back here.
Well, we're accepting this proclamation. I'm accepting it on behalf of the Colleyville Lions Club. We made the donation originally as a memorial to two Lions who passed away from our club last year. You might know them. Rob Rutherford is one, and his family is here tonight. And Don Davis is the other. His family, I don't believe, could make it that night. So the bench that we're going to be putting in at the Colleyville Center, we hope will have a plaque on it memorializing them. And they were great Lions. They gave a lot to the community, and we appreciate them. So anybody out there who would like to become a Lion, we're open for business. Give us a call, and we're glad to have the mayor, count the mayor, as a Lion here as well. So.
I've been a Lion for many years, and yes, I've knew both of those gentlemen. They were great guys. Both of them did so much for this community, so much in the Lions Club. They were very dedicated individuals to the community and their friends, and we loved them. Did a great job. We miss them. So let me read the proclamation that recognizes you guys. Whereas the Colleyville Lions Club was chartered by Lions Club International on June 1, 1982, and whereas the Colleyville Lions Club actively supports and contributes to the Texas Lions Camp for Texas children with a physical disability and/or type 1 diabetes, site conservation through eyeglass recycling, and the Site First program. And whereas the Colleyville Lions Club motto, "We Serve," is evidenced throughout our community via annual Lions Club events to include Breakfast with Santa, the Hole-in-One golf event, and the Excitement Run. And whereas the Colleyville Lions Club provides scholarship for local youth, donates valuable equipment, resources, and funding for the benefit of city services and projects. And whereas the Colleyville Lions Club individually and collectively supports the environment, our senior community, and the disadvantaged locally and worldwide. And whereas the Colleyville Lions Club has made a $2,000 donation to purchase a memorial bench to be located at the Colleyville Center in memory and honor of Lion Don Davis and Lion Robert Rutherford for their long and untiring service to the Colleyville community. Now therefore, I, Richard Newton, Mayor of the City of Colleyville, Texas, on behalf of the Colleyville City Council and the residents of our community, do hereby recognize the Colleyville Lions Club and extend our deepest appreciation for choosing the Colleyville Center Garden to memorialize the contributions of Don Davis, Robert Rutherford, and the Colleyville Lions Club. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and seal of the City of Colleyville, Texas, affixed this 6th day of August 2019. So we thank you. It'd be nice to have that memorial for them. And thank you all for coming, and thank all you guys. Yeah, we get some. Did you want to say anything like that?
Trees and family, I just want to let you know it's going to be an honor we're going to develop a garden and place the memorial bench right in the middle of it. So when we get ready to launch it, we'll make sure that we invite you guys for the unveiling of that too.
Awesome.
So.
Is that it? I just know how honored he would be for this memorial. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So thank you guys.
Thank you very much then.
Yeah.
And we got all the pictures we need, I guess.
Yeah, we got to get pictures. Yeah, we got to. Do we need to arrange?
On the back side.
Really appreciate all you do. Thanks for coming. Okay, I have one more proclamation to do, and this is in recognition of Professional Engineers Day. So we're going to have our professional engineers come down, Larry Wright and Nathan Froman, and I guess Daniel Eshu couldn't be here. He's not quite P, but he's EIT, and, right? He will be that soon. So Larry, how long have you been here?
So I've been here since April 1st of this year. Not very long at all. I was city engineer at the city of Abilene for 3 years, and before that I worked for the city of Weatherford for about 6-7 years.
We're glad you're here. How about you?
I've been here for about 8.5, 9 months now, and I came from the private world. I was a geotech engineer.
Super. Well, engineers don't say a lot. They're kind of quiet guys, you know. They do a lot. I tell you, we were just reviewing a while ago in the work session the budget coming up, and one thing in there was the 2020 Capital Improvements Program. You guys are going to be really busy. Like $23 million in road projects. I think the total capital improvement budget for next year is like $38 million. That's a lot of stuff. But I got to tell you, you do a great job. The whole engineering group does a great job. We appreciate what you do. It's hard work. You guys are kind of in the background most of the time, but you do a lot of the nuts and bolts things that this city needs and has to have, and do a super job, and everybody appreciates it. So me being an engineer, I wanted to definitely bring this to everybody's attention. I don't think engineers get enough recognition, not talking about me, I'm about engineers in general. I tell you what engineers do for this country and the community is amazing, actually. And they don't brag about it. So I got a proclamation that I want to read. Whereas licensed professional engineers and dedicated, and by the way, this is a National Society of Professional Engineering endeavor. So hopefully people are doing this all around the country. Tomorrow is the day. Whereas licensed professional engineers are dedicated to applying scientific knowledge, mathematics, and ingenuity to develop solutions for technical, societal, and commercial problems while holding paramount the public health, safety, and welfare. And boy, that is true. Very high standards that you guys hold. Whereas Colleyville licensed professional engineers have made significant contributions on local and national scale, and whereas Colleyville's economy has grown in part because its licensed professional engineers are instrumental to our community, and whereas August the 7th, 2019, has been declared Professional Engineers Day by the National Society of Professional Engineers, an organization founded in 1934 that represents the interest of more than 26,000 licensed professional engineers and those on the path to licensure, who show the highest level of dedication to their profession in all 50 states and U.S. territories. Now, therefore, I, Richard Newton, Mayor of the City of Colleyville, Texas, on behalf of the Colleyville City Council, do hereby proclaim August the 7th, 2019, as Professional Engineers Day in the City of Colleyville, and call upon all citizens to join me in this observance. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and seal of the City of Colleyville, Texas, affixed the 6th day of August, 2019. So, thank you guys for doing what you do.
Thank you,
Thank you for, you guys want to say anything?
They're engineers.
So the mayor is right. We have a lot of work planned for next year, and we just look forward to improving the city of Colleyville for our citizens here in this town. Thank you.
Glad you're here. Huh? It's just, you're talking about Nathan, right? Nathan was a Colleyville Heritage graduate. I didn't know that. But he played basketball, good basketball player. Good rock basketball. Boy, very good. Okay, we will now move to agenda item 4, which is the consent reading and public hearing. This is Resolution R-19-4406, a resolution approving city council action under consent items at the regular city council meeting of August 6, 2019. Whereas the city council has taken action on certain items on the agenda under consent items. Now therefore be it resolved by the city council of the city of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the agenda decisions approved by city council action under consent items as follows are hereby adopted. A, approval of an agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management for vehicle procurement, mechanical maintenance, and disposal services, and authorization for the city manager to execute all contract documents relating thereto, and it is so resolved.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. I'm excited to bring forward this partnership opportunity to the City Council. Now, we spoke about this in work session format a couple of weeks ago, and this item before you on your consent resolution is the formal agreement to now enter into based on that initial discussion. For those watching at home that aren't familiar with the conversation or weren't tuned into the first conversation we had, I'll provide a little bit of background about Enterprise Fleet Management and what their programs include. So Enterprise Fleet Management is kind of a unique partnership opportunity that a lot of local governments in our area have taken advantage of. A couple of our neighbors have, Keller, Bedford, Prosper, and we've kind of been watching from the sidelines. You never necessarily want to be the first guinea pig in any sort of new program, but we've been watching over the last couple of years to see how those cities have been implementing the program, and feel like it has been the right time for Colleyville to kind of step up and consider the program. We actually had our longtime fleet manager, Tim Mathis, announce his retirement earlier this year, and his intended retirement date was for June. So as we entered the budget process for fiscal year 2020, it really seemed like the stars were aligning for it to be the right time to say, okay, well, should we look at other options for fleet management, given some of those planned staffing changes? And a partnership with Enterprise Fleet Management really started to make a lot of sense. And we have here with us tonight Jennifer Bertram. She's been the contact that we've been working with along the way, and of course can answer any detailed questions the council may have. But again, for those at home that aren't familiar with the program at all, Enterprise, who you normally think of as the rental car company, actually is one of the largest buyers and sellers of vehicles, if not the largest, if I remember, worldwide. Of course, you think about the amount of rental car fleets that they have to manage and prepare for, and that kind of makes them an expert in the industry. So that now they have kind of harnessed that expertise and are working with cities to offer those services to cities. So the things that they offer that are kind of a part of this program are helping cities with procuring new vehicles, particularly the timing of those, as well as making sure that we are selecting the right vehicles. If you need a crew cab truck, which vehicle is the best for purchase now, as well as what is the best intended resale and what can we get the most money for on the back end when we need to sell. So the purchasing expertise is helpful. Then the vehicle maintenance side, they have a program where for our non-emergency services vehicles, they will provide a set budget amount, which will help provide some consistency from a city perspective. And we also anticipate some maintenance savings. And we will work with them through their network of shops. And any shop here in Colleyville has the ability to be added. And that allows us to take our business for some of those routine maintenance items to those local shops. Another key part of the strategy in working with Enterprise is replacing our vehicles on a more aggressive and expedient time frame. I'll kind of do a before and after chart here in a couple of slides for you guys, but in general, the city has taken the approach of replacing vehicles around that 10 years or 100,000 mile life. And what Enterprise does is looks at the most fruitful time to turn over those vehicles based on resale value. And that really helps reinvest those funds back into our fleet management program. And so then the last piece that Enterprise helps provide assistance for is that disposal. So the city's current practice today is to take our vehicles, just like we do with any assets that we need to dispose of, and take that to auction. That's not always the best way to get the best price. And so they are, again, experts at selling vehicles worldwide and can help use the variety of avenues to help the city get the most return for our dollar when we go to dispose of those vehicle assets. So just a couple of benefits that we think are really important as we consider this program, particularly in the strategy of replacing our vehicles on a more frequent basis. one of the nice things with this program is we're able to continue the city's strategy of cash funding all of our vehicles. We are not entering into any sort of debt arrangement, and that's always been kind of a point of pride and a point of our financial strategy, is to make sure that we're cash funding all of our capital improvements as well as our asset purchases. Also, with the newer vehicle fleet, we'll have increased fuel efficiency. You think about vehicles that were repurchased even 5 years ago. Seems like every time, on an individual or personal basis, you go out to buy a new vehicle, technology advances and the miles per gallon just continues to improve and improve over time. So increased fuel efficiency is key. Also safety. You think about even 5 years ago, the features that were standard safety features that are not in those vehicles that were even 5 years old, they are now standard today. You think about when anti-lock brakes came onto the market several years back, and those are now standard features. So things like that, we think it's important to make sure that our employees are in the safest possible vehicle. That also helps reduce the likelihood of accidents. If we've got backup cameras and some of those different things can really kind of from a safety and risk perspective be another benefit that the city would experience. And then of course, anytime you have newer vehicles and you're flipping those on a more regular basis, your maintenance costs and the amount that you have to spend on that it decreases. So of course, there'll always be the preventive maintenance, your oil changes, things of that nature. But if you're replacing vehicles on closer to a 3-ish year time frame, you may never have to replace tires. You may never have to replace brakes or things like that. Again, additional savings from an operating perspective. So with all of that, I wanted to provide, again, I think sometimes just looking at it in a before-after simplified chart can be helpful. With Jennifer's assistance, we kind of worked to boil this down as to common sense as we possibly could. So when you look out over the next 5 years in terms of what the city was planning on spending or contributing, you may recall that we set aside a set amount every year annually in our budget over into our vehicle and equipment replacement fund to fund our asset purchases. So over the next 5 years, we were estimating a planned set aside or contribution to the fleet program of about $2.5 million. Through the enterprise program over that same 5-year period, we're looking at about $1.9 million. On the average age of the fleet, you're looking at going from 8-year typical average life of a city vehicle down to 4 years, which comes with all of those benefits we just talked about in terms of having a newer fleet. Again, going from that 10-year or $100,000 mile criteria in terms of replacement down to really focusing in on, okay, let's have an annual meeting and look at when is the strategic time to replace any key vehicle in our fleet. If Ford F-150s tend to be, at this point in time, getting a really good resale value, maybe it's time we look at those types of vehicles in our fleet and say, let's go ahead and sell those now and replace those based on the market value. So looking at that on a regular annual basis to make smart financial decisions for the city. And then from an operating cost perspective, we mentioned that both from a fuel perspective and from a maintenance and operating cost for the maintenance side of it, that it would be less. And as we transition our fleet into the Enterprise Fleet Management Program, there'll be a number of vehicles that we'll replace in year 1, but it will take us a couple of years to fully get into the new program. There'll be a number of vehicles that we will also need to replace in year 2. So you'll see here kind of a sliding scale of the annual savings that we anticipate bringing forward under the enterprise plan. And then again, just for reference, on a normal year, we would typically be looking in fiscal year 2020 at about 12 planned replacements of vehicles. This year 1 would be kind of a larger upfront purchase to get into the program at 35 vehicles being replaced. I think that's really exciting. We've heard a lot of positive feedback from our employees when they hear about the program. I think they kind of take pride in the fact that the city's investing in their assets this way, and that we care about their safety in that regard as well. But it's been positively embraced, and as we met with Jennifer and her team to really evaluate whether this was a good fit for the city, we included all departments that have vehicles in those initial meetings to make sure that this was something everybody was truly comfortable with. But hopefully that provides a good overview for those that aren't as familiar and a recap for the City Council. But your consent resolution here tonight takes that formal action to enter into that partnership and agreement with Enterprise to work on their full fleet management services.
Very good.
Yeah, Adrian, just one quick question. On this situation, if we find out it does not provide savings, we can stop at any time, is that correct?
We sure can. In the case where the arrangement with Enterprise is that we will pay for the vehicle down to the very last $1. They will hold that $1 so that they have title and are able to work on our behalf and take on some of that legwork for the buying and selling piece. And if at any point we feel that it's not an arrangement we want to continue with, we can simply pay them that $1, take our title, and part ways.
Great.
Yes.
Just a comment for the public who may be hearing this for the first time and, is having difficulty understanding the concept. Simply put, the city buys vehicles at a greatly reduced price, different than a retail buyer would pay. And so that depreciation that is traditionally lost in that value initially has already been removed from the equation. So a city buying a vehicle and then selling it a year later can literally almost sell it a year later for what they bought it for and be able to replace it with very little cost involved.
Very true.
And so what this program does is takes advantage of that savings and also then combines it with maintenance savings and other scheduled process that is a little more ornate and gets into the detail of times when the, quote, trade-in or sale value is greatest and provides a way for cities to enjoy that savings that is realized at purchase, but can allow for you to keep newer vehicles at a reduced cost. And so it's a process that's been used in many other communities and successfully, and so it's an interesting opportunity for us. And as Councilmember Dotson said, if it doesn't work out, we can always opt out.
Yep.
And I think you, for those that were listening to the proposed budget presentation earlier this evening in work session, we saw that there was that decrease in the fleet services division, and that fleet manager retirement position I mentioned earlier. As we enter into this program, we're actually able to save the operating dollars in the general fund and do not plan to replace that position. And we'll go from a staff of 3 to a staff of 2 for fleet services, and this program allows us to save that.
So just a rough estimate, kind of over a 5-year time frame, how much money does this save? Do you know that?
I mean, easily, in the $600,000 range.
Yeah, well, I just noticed up there in the contribution, it's a $600,000 over 5 years. Plus, the operating costs clearly go down by not quite a half, but nearly a half.
Significant.
And we saved what? It was like a $96,000 reduction in fleet services in the operating budget that you were just referring to. So this program, from my perspective, has a lot of value. We get newer vehicles, which is good for a lot of reasons, and it saves quite a bit of money across the capital space as well as the operating space. So, and it's low risk. As you said, we watch Keller. I mean, doing this on a cash basis, a lot of cities don't do it on a cash basis because that helps them with their money, but we don't have that problem. Keller did it on a cash basis.
Yeah, Keller and Prosper were the two.
Yeah.
So we were watching to see how they handled it.
Yeah, so I see no downsides.
Yeah, it looks really great. The other thing, as you indicated here on the chart, this program does not include the special fire equipment and all of the other a fleet of
specialty emergency
specialty
services.
Tractors and graders and all those kinds of devices that we do need to maintain.
Exactly.
And they're not managed under this program.
And that's why it was critical to make sure we still have those 2 full-time employees in our fleet division to have the resources for some of those types of equipment.
And this doesn't include the police cars either, correct?
It will include replacing them, but the maintenance set budget program does not apply to the emergency services.
Right, because their mileage is much higher.
Exactly.
Very good. Any other questions?
Nope.
You didn't get to say anything. She told all your thunder.
She was behind you, rolling her eyes.
He's talking to the police chief.
Yeah. Okay. Want to open public hearing, but there's nothing else?
No.
Nothing else? Public hearing is open. I have no cards. Anyone wish to speak on this item? I see no one indicating that, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Motion is in order.
I move adoption of resolution R dash
4406.
4405.
Yeah.
Is this
No.
part of the, isn't this part of the,
It can't be 05.
It's 06.
06.
I'm sorry.
It does say that
06?
up top, but
06.
it's 06.
Oh, okay. 4406.
Yep. I'll second.
All right.
Sorry.
Got a motion to approve by Councilmember Dodson, and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Lindamood.
Well, it would be Chuck Kelly, but I know we
Oh,
sound a
sure.
lot
I'm
alike.
sorry.
That's all right.
Shit, can't
He's got
forget-
that, you know,
Scratch
deep
that.
raspy, you know, country voice.
Mayor Pro Tem Kelly. No, Councilmember.
Ooh,
He went like
let's
this.
Go there. Ooh, I hope
Okay.
my wife's not watching.
Let's vote.
Oh, man.
You open the vote, please.
Yeah, we're just getting going.
May show it whenever it's in. Okay, that motion is approved, therefore the resolution is approved. We're in.
Easiest sale you've had all night.
Thanks
Thank
for the
you for
good deals
coming.
for us, too.
I know you put a lot of work in on this, thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now moving to agenda item number 5A.
There he is.
This is second reading and public hearing of ordinance O-19-2087, approval of the fiscal year 2020 Colleyville Crime Control and Prevention District budget. Chief.
Yes, sir. Mayor, council, good evening. Chief Miller with the police department. I know that you've heard this several times, but because each time we may have new people tuning in, we're going to do the same presentation that you've seen before. So nothing new, but I hope you'll bear with me tonight as we go through this.
Absolutely.
So it is a pleasure to be here to talk to you about the crime district budget. We're going to talk about the proposed FY20 budget for the Colleyville Crime Control and Prevention District. As you're aware, the district was created in 1999 by local voters for an initial 5-year period of time. In 2003, it was renewed for an additional 20 years, and the district will be eligible for renewal again in 2023. The district is authorized and governed by Section 363 of the Local Government Code and the Local Board of Directors, and the district's funding is specifically dedicated to law enforcement, and it's important. It's a really important component of our ability to maintain that quality of life that we expect here and the low crime rate that we have in Colleyville. So we have several new proposed initiatives in this budget. The first one I want to talk about is the new sergeant position that we're requesting. That position was actually added to the CCCPD budget in 2017, but projected out for FY20, and here we are. The position will address the span of control issues currently experienced by the lieutenant assigned to the Criminal Investigation Division. The span of control for that lieutenant is listed here, and I wanted to direct your attention to the following direct reports the lieutenant is responsible for. You can read those. Ideally, we would like to keep the span of control to around 1 to 5, or maybe even 1 to 7, which is consistent with our patrol division. We feel like the addition of this supervisor will allow us to reorganize a little and ensure that we have adequate and robust supervision in that division. So we are budgeting for that sergeant full-time employee at $100,000 plus additional vehicle that's in this budget as well. We're also requesting a new part-time accreditation coordinator position in this year's budget. The employee who managed the Texas Best Practices accreditation process for the last few years left the agency in February. So in the fall of 2017, right before I started, we signed on to achieve national accreditation through another organization called Colleyville. So this is a rigorous and multi-year process, and will take dedicated attention to accomplish and maintain this. This new part-time position will coordinate both Texas Best Practices and Colleyville accreditation processes, and we hope to hire a part-time employee who has experience with both and could hit the ground running, as we're midway through that Colleyville cycle already. We worked with HR to determine the appropriate pay level for this position and budgeted $27,000 for it. Through the reclassification of an existing position and an internal promotion in our records department, we were able to save $10,000. And so this position would require only an additional $17,000 to fully fund. So a couple of other new initiatives here that we are proposing. As part of my initial 90-day review of the agency, the team identified some opportunities to enhance training for our department. One of the opportunities identified is a focus on leadership development training for our senior staff. We're requesting $10,000 per year to fund annual training for our senior-most leaders. We would like to send some of our senior staff to a school like the Police Executive Research Forum's Senior Management Institute for Police, which is a 3-week-long class and costs $9,750. That's just an example of the type of classes that are out there. There are many others that would help us to also develop our leaders and managers, but around that same price. We're also requesting additional funding for ongoing de-escalation and crisis intervention training for all of our sworn personnel. This training will focus on ensuring safe interactions with people in crisis and will ensure our personnel have all of the tools necessary to deal with these situations as safely as possible. For that, we're requesting also an additional $10,000 per year. Moving to the bottom of the slide, these are two system-related requests. We're requesting additional funding for access to an investigative platform that will aid and provide additional capabilities to our detectives in their investigations. Access to this tool will improve their effectiveness and help in solving crimes. This is a subscription service, and the cost for this service is also $9,750 per year. And finally, we're requesting additional funding for an early warning system that helps identify officers who may be having problems and require intervention before they become an issue to the department. Early warning systems are standard across the industry, and they're also required for CALIA accreditation. The system that we're looking at would also allow us to have some additional capability to complete internal affairs investigations electronically. We currently do those by paper today. This system would cost approximately $5,500 per year in ongoing funding. The largest dollar item on the request is for a new computer-aided dispatch and records management system. As you're aware, we have partnered with Keller and Southlake, and we're all on the same system. But we've added Grapevine to this consortium this year. And so a consortium of Colleyville, Southlake, Keller, and Grapevine are looking to move from our current computer-aided dispatch and records management system to a new commercial off-the-shelf system. Our current system was developed and is managed by Sam Houston State University, and we feel we have all outgrown it and need to look at other options. The plans are to use existing funding from this fiscal year to obtain a consultant, which is already on board, who can help us facilitate the requirements gathering, RFP process, and system selection process. We're estimating $50,000 for our portion of the consultant, and the City of Keller is actively managing this process on behalf of the consortium. And as a matter of fact, we have a kickoff meeting on Thursday for this process. All partner cities are currently budgeting for this system procurement through their individual crime districts in FY20, just as we are. Our share of the new system is estimated to be $375,000, and we are requesting funding as part of this budget. I would also like to move on to some ongoing initiatives. For FY20, for this proposed budget, we're including $1,132,589 for salary and benefits for 12 sworn positions, so 11 officer positions and the additional sergeant position that we discussed in an earlier slide. If approved, the total current authorized sworn staffing would increase from 43 to 44 for the police department. In addition to the part-time accreditation coordinator position we mentioned earlier, this budget also includes $48,754 in existing funding for the 2 part-time public service officer positions that were approved last year. We have those positions on board, and they are actively working every day. The following items have no changes from the previous year, so I'll quickly highlight them for you. Moving down the list, the proposed budget allocates $49,500 to continue to fund our records management system software, crimes, and its maintenance. Obviously, that money would be, that line item would be used as well for the new maintenance agreement once we enter into an agreement with another vendor for the CAD and records management system. Funding includes $5,492 for our crime reports analytical software, along with several other software maintenance agreements that are listed in the spreadsheet that we provided you. And we continue to participate in the Metroport Teen Court program at 1/4 of the regional costs, and our share is $33,750. There are a number of initiatives that are ongoing with very minimal changes, if any at all. I'm going to cover them here, but welcome your questions if you have them. We will continue executing the fleet management plan at a cost of $262,650 for the purchase of the of 4 marked vehicles and the new Sergeant vehicle. We will continue to swap out equipment from the older vehicles and install in the new. Obviously, our fleet budget was included in the enterprise fleet management discussions, and this money will flow, the funding will flow to that program as well. We continue to budget $10,000 for our annual weapons replacement and continue to budget $6,150 for SWAT training and equipment. As you're aware, we have a joint SWAT team called the Northeast Tarrant SWAT team, and it's made up of South Lake, Colleyville, Keller, Roanoke, and Trophy Club. Several other ongoing initiatives include funding for safety equipment to include combat gauze, collapsible rubber-based traffic cones for each patrol unit. Excuse me. Also funding for a software license required for the 2 radar signs that we use. This software allows for timely, effective, and accurate reporting and analysis of all the data collected from the radar signs. We also continue to designate $5,000 for any complex crime scene processing or services the department might need in FY20. Sometimes you have a very large crime scene that may need more than we typically use, and so we have some funding set aside for those complex crime scenes. We hope we never have to use it, but we have the money there if we need it. And one of the things that you'll notice that is a change from last year is that we took the large facility-related capital projects out of the CCCPD budget and placed them into the city's capital improvement plan. We've talked a little bit about that. We talked about a little that during the budget discussion earlier. This is a strategy from the city manager's office to better align our capital costs with the appropriate funding sources. So the Justice Center capital projects will now be in and part of the CIP. This is also in line with their strategy to ensure that the programs and services this half-cent sales tax funds are ones that truly touch our residents and visitors by providing tangible public safety services. One last thing that I'd like to update you on, while it's not part of the CCCPD budget, we did talk about it with the city manager's office this year when we were going through our budget discussions. And we are proposing, let's see, while we considered adding these to the CCCPD budget this year, the manager's office was able to help us find existing funding sources for body cameras, and we're proposing equipping all of our police officers with body cameras. The infrastructure, server, and storage required for body cameras were already planned and procured as part of the WatchGuard in-car video system that was completed last year. So all we have to do now is really purchase the cameras themselves and the clips with a few other pieces of technology. The police department is requesting permission to implement a body camera program for all of our police officers. We think it's an important tool to ensure accountability and agency transparency. With your approval, we're planning an implementation for FY20 sometime after October, and the estimated cost to implement this new technology is $92,200. While this is not included in the CCCPD budget, we know it's important to you, and you've told us that. We just wanted to keep you updated as it's an important program to you.
Thank you.
So this is our final slide. Using 5-year projections, staff has made a concerted effort to create long-term planning and forecasting for this fund and the department as a whole. Current expenditures funded by CCCPD are projected to continue. The debt will actually be paid off this fiscal year, so FY19, and this will eliminate the need for the debt ratio coverage. As you're aware, our equipment, capital, and facility needs vary from year to year. We feel very comfortable with this plan and truly appreciate the spirit of cooperation that we've received from the city manager's office. And we believe this budget will provide the needed equipment, technology, and staffing to allow us to continue to provide the exceptional services that our community desires and deserves. At this point, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the budget.
Very good. So just to clarify on the body cameras for the people that may be watching, you guys are doing that with, you found this year's money in the city to do that.
Correct.
So it's great.
Correct.
Good with, appreciate you doing that.
We
There were-
appreciate the support. It's something that I've wanted to do since I've got here, and the city manager really made it a priority for us to be able to do this year, and so we're thankful for that.
Yeah, there was some confusion in the community about that, and I was able to at least respond, on media about it, but it's a great plan and super situation, I think, to protect our policemen on duty, and also to provide, like you say, transparency to know what actually went on and the situation that the police are under. Thank you so much.
It's an industry standard now, and we're glad to get to a point where we're able to be part of that. And we think it's great for police officers, but it also protects the public.
Absolutely, sure does.
Accountability and transparency is really what we're after here.
Yep.
We appreciate the support.
Oh, yeah, I know that I very recently did a ride-out with the police department as part of the Colleyville Citizen Police Academy, and there was at least one situation where that would have been an even greater tool for them to have, because I could see it visually from the car, but someone being able to see it firsthand from the officer's viewpoint would have been immeasurably better.
So full disclosure, we do have multiple cameras on our cars, and so that interaction is, our officers are mic'd, and then there's multiple cameras in those cars. So almost all the interactions are already recorded, but that extra additional viewpoint from the officer's perspective is what we're gonna get. And when you move outside that camera view of that car, the front of the car, the back of the car, that's where you're not capturing it without a body cam. And so that's the gap that we're gonna be trying to fill here.
That's great.
Not only that, it also helps whenever you go up to a person and they're seeing that you're recording it live. It just takes that, that chance of something, maybe, somebody had that in their thought. But I want to take the chance, and you always brag on your officers. And they're amazing. We did, Chuck and I and a couple of people, we did the thing with you guys, the police academy. But Chief, since you come here, we just appreciate all that you've done. The slides, the information, it's detailed, it's easy to read, it's easy for the public to understand, as well as myself. And you know what, it's time that we brag back at you. Honestly, I thought that this being the third time you're gonna do it with your eyes closed and we were really gonna brag on you. Kinda let me down a little bit, but hey.
I love to speak extemporaneously and not from notes, but because this is a budget and it deals with numbers, I don't want to do anything by memory. I want to make sure that we get everything, and I don't forget something, because my boss is also watching. So it's important that I can continue to maintain that consistency.
Well, I teased you earlier about, Reagan in the schools, but you're hands-on. Not only do we see in the office, we see at the schools, we see you riding shotgun with the guys and gals. You're all over, and your presence just really makes a big deal, and you can see the uplift of our officers and how much more they enjoy their job. And I appreciate you, Chief.
Well, I appreciate it. It's never about me, really. When you love what you do, I really don't feel like I work a single day in my life. And I mean, this is the greatest job I can imagine. We have a front row seat in life, and we get to serve a great community. And this has been better than I had ever dreamed it would be for the last year and 2 or 3 months. So I honestly appreciate the opportunity to serve. And the team that I inherited here is second to none, I can tell you that much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Well, you slid right through it really quick, but it's not insignificant, so I'm going to repeat it. And
Yes,
that
sir.
is, there is no debt as of this year, 0 debt.
That's right.
All
Beautiful.
the money borrowed has been paid off.
Awesome.
That's consistent with our overall cash-funded strategy. So we appreciate that. wanted to point that out to everybody.
Absolutely.
And in addition, you commented on, well, we don't have to keep the 1.4 times ending balance, but you're still ending up with 830,000 or so in ending balance this year, which is a hefty amount. So,
It's a great partnership, and we're thankful for the resources that we've been given. And I think this is one of the best, until we have the best equipment, we have the best people. It is a big team here, and we appreciate all the support.
well, we thank all of y'all.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments?
Nope.
Nope, I'm gonna open the public hearing then. Public hearing is open. Kathy, you want to speak? You may. Have a card? Oh, we have a card, actually. Yeah.
Kathy Hadley, 204 Timberline Drive North, to represent myself. I think Chief Miller is awesome. I really appreciate everything he has shared. I don't think the police get the credit for Colleyville being the safest city in Texas. They don't get the credit. The residents do. And I've been here majority of my life. And it was safe back when I was younger, middle-aged, and now I'm an old lady. But it's great to have a good, healthy police department. Not healthy, when you need them, they're there. But it's the people, the quality of the people. Police aren't necessarily, they're needed now, but back in the day, they weren't. And then as a school teacher, if we had to do some extra above and beyond classes or whatever to enhance our teaching, it came out of our pocket to better ourselves. And $10,000, is that a person? The teachers taught the policemen when they were kids. It's like, come on, let's get things prioritized. Yes, here I go off on my soapbox. They deserve good pay, so do teachers, and we don't get it. Everything comes out of our pocket, and yet y'all are just giving them tons of money. And one thing I'm going to gripe about is when police are giving a ticket, they don't tell them to get off the main road, go off the main road. You're trying to go around them, not hit the police officer who's stepping out, stopping traffic, because everybody's having to stop with these blinding lights that are going off. It's like just traffic is stopping because you're having to make way for somebody, and what's going on? Just pull over. Ask them to move into the next neighborhood or something. Get off of Glade, get off of Jigsburger, get off of Jackson. Go into a neighborhood, please. But I appreciate what they do, and I'm sure I'm on everybody's hit list now. But I drive 30 miles an hour through Colleyville, and I know I have lots of people that get angry for me. It's like, I hate being behind this woman. But, I'm just concerned, this is my tax dollars. They don't have to pay a dime. Y'all are paying $10,000, I guess, a person to make themselves more a better police officer when it came out of my pocket to make myself a better teacher. But my job isn't as important as theirs? Really? Thank you.
Thank you. That's the only card we have?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. If there's no other speakers, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. I do wanna make a comment, and you can too. I always say our number one resource in this city is the people that live here, but I bet you what you're gonna tell us is what makes Colleyville the safest city in Texas is that joint participation between the police force, our police officers, and our citizens. And I am absolutely believe that to be true. So I don't want to preempt
Words
you.
right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And Ms. Hadley, we're partners with you. We've definitely, I know you support the police department, and we can't do our job without our citizens. And so we're so much stronger when we work together and when we partner with our community. And so that's what we've been working on, and we're continuing to work on, just that, increasing that engagement and that partnership with our community. I will say, Ms. Hadley, it is not $10,000 per officer. It is $10,000 total per year. That's what we're asking for. And I would also agree with you. Our teachers are very, very important as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's very appropriate that we train our police officers, and they shouldn't have to do it themselves, as we should all our employees. And I also agree, teachers shouldn't have to do that. And I'm right there with you. Of course, we don't
We all
control
are.
that, but I'm happy to speak to anybody about that. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Ms. Hadley. Okay, if no other comments, a motion would be in order.
I'll move to approve ordinance 019-2087.
I'll second.
Have a motion to approve by Councilmember Kelly, a second by Councilmember Wheat. Is that right?
No, Rigney.
Kelly, man. I'm not getting the.
That's feedback.
Yeah,
Ears are clogged or
yeah, maybe one's not working, I don't know. Okay, so would you open the vote, please? Vote is open. Now what happens, that sound comes from the speaker, so you don't have that direction.
Yeah, you
know.
can't, you can't tell where it's coming from.
So the motion's approved, therefore the ordinance is approved. Got your budget, Chief. Very good. We will now move to item 6B. Excuse me, 6A.
6A.
Jump too far. Yeah, we're now on first reading. So this is first reading and public hearing of ordinance O-19-2088. Consideration of amendments to the Land Development Code, specifically Chapter 3, Section 3.7, non-conforming uses, lots and buildings, subsection B, non-conforming lots of record, Chapter 3, Section 3.24, Schedule of permitted uses, subsection G, Schedule of district regulations, Chapter 3, Section 3.28, Supplementary District Regulations, and Chapter 9, Section 9.7, Lots, Subsection G, Building Lines. I nearly got that out.
Yep. A lot of sections. Ben Briner, Director of Community Development. Really what this item is for is the enforcement of setback requirements, which was under the direction that I received from you as the council. And so I'm going to go through several sections that all relate to the setback requirements for lots. So the first is in Chapter 3, Section 3.7, nonconforming uses, lots, and buildings. This was advertised for amendment, although in reading it, I don't propose any changes to this section, but I wanted to at least identify a couple lines here, which I've underlined for emphasis. So if it is a lot of record, so a platted lot may not be conforming to the existing zoning district, but it does say that the yard dimensions and requirements of the lot shall conform to the regulations for the district in which such lot is located. So it does say that it must meet the zoning setback requirements, even if it is a non-conforming lot of record.
Does that include lot width and lot size?
It does not include the size or width, but what this is saying is that it must conform with the setbacks of the zoning district that it has.
So if we wanted to exclude side and width, we would just strike that provision here? That would be sufficient to cover all the rest of it elsewhere in the code?
So to me, that's a different conversation. And you had given me a heads up earlier today. What I did find is that some communities do authorize, so what this basically says is you need a platted lot in order to get a building permit. But sometimes the lot is not of the size needed based on the zoning. Under our current standards, it would still be allowed to receive a building permit for a new house, but you must meet the setbacks as well as the lot coverage and other things, but you would be exempt from your size criteria. That would be your area as well as your lot width and lot depth. So if we want to have them go through a special approval process, I did see one community, this is just really quick research, that I forget what they call it, but some type of special approval to authorize that activity as authorized by the zoning, but you're on a substandard lot to
An
occur.
Administrative variance of some type.
Yeah, that might be a way to call that.
Yeah.
So it looks like some communities are doing that. I don't know that they're in Texas, but I can look into that a little bit more. I might look at the city attorney as well, just to
Yeah.
see what we can and can't do.
With what we have in Colleyville, it would seem to me that we need that, not automatically give that variance to width and area. Because we have, I don't know what other communities are like, but how Colleyville grew, and it's not that old. We got a lot of, lots of record that haven't been built like those lots of records are. They're built differently. They're built with house going across 2 lots or 3 lots or whatever. And so we're now entering this tear down, this rebuild phase where most of our land is gone. We're nearly built out, but what's happening more and more, and it's going to just accelerate, is houses get tore down and rebuilt. And so we have already seen examples where the situation is biting us in the butt a little bit because the houses that are there get tore down, and this grants, right, to go all the way back to whenever those lots were created. So it doesn't matter what you've done in the city and what you've tried to do with your ordinances, there's always that fallback that really takes us back to I will say, a lower quality standard in many cases, and I could cite examples to this, and that's what concerned me. I would rather make the standard higher and require conscious decisions getting made about it. Does that make sense?
I think.
So I'm arguing to,
Yeah, or a variance that is providing a process by which a special exception could be granted because there's something unique there that warrants the process, but it's a council decision then.
yes, yeah.
I think it needs to be a council decision.
Yeah.
We can't just have people come in and, if the standard is 10-foot side lot and because it's a non-conforming lot, they can put one in with 3 foot. I mean, that's crazy.
Well, that's the interesting thing about our code requires them to conform with side yard setback, front yard setback, corner side yard, rear, things that we can change anytime. But the code only accepts area, which is the lot size itself, and the lot width. And so the suggestion here is that those 2 elements should not be exempt, and they should fall under the same criteria that all of the other zoning standards do. And should they be deemed appropriate to vary them at that time.
Exactly. I agree with that.
That's the suggestion, yes.
Yeah, so I think we need to modify it.
Yeah, because then you have the opportunity where, got to tear down that went across 2 lots, then you get a little bit to say, combine those lots,
just leave it.
conform now.
That's
Now
right.
time to conform and combine those lots and
Yep.
build it like it was,
Stop the non-conforming.
Well, and I think the mayor just touched on something really important.
Yeah.
When that house was built across those 2 lots, the intent and the appearance for the community is more open.
Exactly.
If you tear down that house and build 2 houses on what was a perceived single lot development, you've now changed the character. And so if you're gonna change the character of that streetscape or that block, that should go through a process by which there is consideration given, neighbors allowed to comment, and an official process by which a variance is granted.
Exactly, and we've got one situation that I know of, and I know there are more, where they can now build 2 houses, but there's a significant drainage issue that they've created by jamming one house in there, where there were and potentially two houses, but creating a very significant drainage issue for the whole area.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
and
a bad
absolutely.
issue.
And drainage is one of the things you look at, but also it could be, overall character of the
Oh,
area. And so
absolutely.
you want to make sure that you're in keeping with what the community intends to see there. And of
Right.
course, the ultimate decision is the council. So if there is a reasonableness applied for a variance, the council can grant it. But if there's not,
I agree.
then it would not be granted. It's not automatic.
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, so unless somebody objects, I would request by the time the next reading gets here that we make that change.
Absolutely.
if you want to, Whit, would you like to have comments on that, just in the limited conversations on that issue?
Sure, and, you know, at the request and discussion of the city manager, we briefly before the meeting looked at some of the issues that the mayor and city manager, I think council talked about. And I don't find, and this is initial, not a formal opinion, but I don't find any prohibition in state law that would exempt area and/or the coverage, you know, lot width, I should say, from, you know, being required to go through the variance process. I know this is a concern I think Ben and I have talked about before, but I hadn't done the research, and initial research says there's nothing that prohibits that. There was at least one case out there in Texas that it was upheld as not a de facto takings, if you will, not to say that has any bearing on our specific ordinance, but it's certainly something we can do under the law, and I think it's something that we can, as long as Ben and I craft the language properly. I think it's something that we can adopt as a process.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's severely needed.
But we do, going back to the setback requirements, we do have language that does say they shall conform with at least what is required by the zoning district in place. This is our schedule of district regulations table. A couple changes on this. One is pointing to the kind of center part of the table where it originally said front under the minimum yard requirements. We've added street side as well. That's just to make it explicit that any property that has frontage, so on a corner lot, both of those, the front as well as this street side, follow that setback requirement, which is a front yard setback requirement. And then on
Ben, quick comment on that. We may want to just clarify by saying front/street ROW side, because the right-of-way, obviously, for a street is what we're talking about, even though there may not be the actual pavement in. I don't want to get into semantics about pavement. Someone says the street's not in, and therefore I don't need to adhere to that setback. So by adding right-of-way, you're clarifying that it's a street right-of-way that is forcing that setback to be applied.
Sure.
Okay.
Also, on the column that's labeled each side, should they say internal side?
Or interior side,
Interior side, yeah.
just as a clarification.
We can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just after clarity, because if you had a side that was on the street, it's not gonna fall into that column. The
Yeah, I think
internal interior would.
With that, I'd probably just delete the word each and replace that with interior side.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
I think that makes sense.
And then the other change on this is on the left-hand side, adding a note, which you'll see this a little bit later as well, but all required building lines shall adhere to the minimum yard requirement of the applicable zoning district for the property per the schedule of district regulations, regardless of any setback shown on a plat, unless a documented plat waiver has been approved.
Yeah,
That was just to make it explicit that we are enforcing zoning setbacks regardless of what's shown on the plat.
Just a clarification why that's important. That goes to that, the house that was on, was it Thompson?
Thomas.
It's Pleasant Run and Thomas.
Pleasant
Yeah.
Run and Thomas, yes,
Right,
where
right.
the house is closer to the road because,
Right.
in fairness to Ben, the policy had been that the department was accepting the setbacks as depicted on the plat.
Wow.
And so we have changed our policy, and this reaffirms the change in policy to make it clear that what is depicted on the plat is not indicative of the setback. The setback is within this schedule. Now, you may have an deed restriction or an HOA or some type of a PUD condition that goes beyond this or less than this, but that's a separate issue. Straight zoning, straight permit, they go by the table. Sorry, Ben.
I know that you haven't modified this, but if you go back to once more, I'm kind of concerned that we're talking about allowing 50% impervious coverage for an RE or ag. It seems to me like that's excessive.
This was added
For 2
by the
acres.
council,
I know.
this entire column.
I know that.
That was just a number that we pulled out. Now, I will say that there are a few legal non-conforming ag lots that are not the true 3 acres.
Oh, okay.
Now, with our change, that will affect how they can develop those properties if that goes through, but.
But I made
Yeah,
the
we'll
same
never
note,
get to
these are
50%.
huge. I made a note on mine, these are huge.
Yeah, yeah, I think we don't want to see them paving over half of a 3-acre lot or a 2-acre lot even.
And part of that was a placeholder, and so we were coming up with percentages.
I know.
Certainly, those can be tweaked. And obviously, you're right, large acreage, 50%'s a lot of building and/or a lot of concrete, but you gotta remember, included in that is driveways,
Oh, I know.
swimming pools, outbuildings.
Sure.
But 50% may be a little bit high.
I think it is, but,
For those big zoning especially.
okay. I think we need to watch it closely. We obviously had one situation that hopefully is getting cleared up.
Which one was that?
It was the one where they were paving over the whole backyard.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, that was like in an R20 or something,
Yeah,
right?
it was an
And, yeah, I was trying to relay, I don't have, in my
It's an
mind,
R20, yeah.
I don't have a gauge in my head about what this max pervious cover is. So that one came to mind because we didn't have a way to address that.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Now, I don't remember the details. I don't remember what the
Well,
percentages
So
were.
that was,
Yeah, they paved over.
if I remember correctly, that one was the one with the temporary
Yeah.
carport
Yes.
Yeah,
and fencing that he was using.
right.
And he paved pretty much the entire lot for that.
A lot of
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Yes, the back, yes. And so when you're calculating the impervious, obviously, in the front yard, that's where you have your greatest value
Yeah.
of
sure, right.
unencumbered land, but you still have your driveway and a walk or anything like
Of
that.
course.
And so where the percentage really comes in is backyard utilization.
Sure.
And so certainly, we can take a look at all of these again and mock up different options, because certainly it's a conversation. But what the exact percentage that's best, I don't know right now.
I don't know
we've had
either.
high utilization, but I doubt we've had utilization that's been under this, but it's possible. So it's interesting. The one concern we had was, in our discussion, was you've got a house that's got a swimming pool in the back. They've got a fairly large house because it's a ranch. They've got a secondary pool house building,
Right.
and they've got a circle drive.
Right.
They're gonna get pretty high in the percentages,
Sure.
but not necessarily look overbuilt.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
As long as the front yard isn't, but again,
But a circle drive
don't-
takes that out.
yeah, for a half acre or larger lot,
Yeah,
I think you, to have it half covered is pretty significant.
Yes, and even an 3-acre ag lot, that's,
I just don't think we should allow 50%, that's my point.
we can look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, you may not know the answer to this. Up on RMF, there's 2 categories, one zone before June 16, 1961, and one after. I do not remember or know why those are in there. Does anybody have any idea
Oh,
what that?
you know what, I think there was some regulation. We may actually not need the one zoned prior.
Prior, yeah.
I can look into that.
Well, we refer to these in another area, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe in the description of the district.
We need to
there
look
may
at
be
the
something
district.
there That may not be relevant anymore.
I don't think it's indicated
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, it may not be
Yeah.
relevant. I can
And-
look at that. We might be able to take that row out completely.
Yeah.
Okay, the other thing I looked at is, well,
What he's got.
me and the city manager were having a discussion about this, that, well, we really aren't gonna, whether we use those categories or not, but the area, the sizes and widths and stuff, I don't know why those numbers are there. Like,
Per family?
yeah, and then the percentage that go high on those over to the right, the max impervious, like 80%. I don't,
Yeah, the question is, should be, those districts are not currently utilized
Yeah.
Right.
with the permissive zoning that was originally intended. They're currently basically single-family. So
Right.
the question is, we've already done some steps make single-family a permitted use and multifamily a special use, is there value in changing some of the standards as they relate to the lot size and other parameters to be more in line with that single-family use? Or is it something you just need to say, at some point, we just gotta rezone it? So I think, Ben, we're kinda talking out loud to kinda get you thinking on what way it's best.
We actually addressed that. So in the RMF district, it does say, when used for single-family purposes, it shall conform to the standards of the R20
Yeah.
single-family residential zoning district.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And the multifamily is a special use, so.
Yes.
And so.
But even in this district, used as single-family, you meet R20 district standards.
Right.
So you're providing some good protection, and that's excellent, thank you. So
Yep.
I guess the only question is, do you ultimately rezone it or not?
Yeah. Where is that wording you were just talking about?
It's in the description for the RMF district.
RMF, yeah.
Okay.
It's on page 3-18, letter F.
I think I remember discussing that back.
Yeah, we added that in as we were going through all of chapter
Yep.
3.
I remember.
It's not going to be in anything that I provided you for this item.
Right.
I just got a question.
Right. So I
okay.
guess what I'm thinking is, just thinking out loud again, is do we have any work to kind of clean this table up to conform better to what we've put in our ordinance in that other location? That's the question. And I don't.
There's no conflict that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's not your question.
What about RMF?
So, well, let me I'm sitting there thinking of situations that could happen. So here's a situation that could happen. So we have in fact, I can think of one or two where we have an area that actually has a historical zoning like that, and it's built single family. And part of that was actually a settlement back in the RTC days. And so there's no intent ever for it to be or actually built, like if those houses got wiped out, that's what I'm worried. Those houses get tore down.
Yeah.
What can happen? And
Come right back.
They would come back to you with the
Yes.
multifamily use.
Sure.
Yes.
But they would need at least a special use, that's a protection.
Right.
Because right now, it's a special use, not a permitted
Yeah.
use. But
Okay.
you're right, they would come back with that more
Okay, so,
aggressive
all right,
zoning.
so let's go down that path. So let's say they did that, came back and they said, oh, we're asking for special use. Now, and let's say somebody's sitting up here and said, well, why may we do that for you? These numbers determine what they can do. Why wouldn't we
Exactly.
change these numbers a little better than what they are?
They need to be changed,
See
I
what,
agree.
yeah.
I agree. Mine, mhm.
And we can look at that, that's
Yeah.
the next question, and that's why
Yeah,
the question I was asking to Ben was along those lines.
yeah.
You change those numbers, do you gut that classification, or do you just eliminate it, rezone the property? And those are
Yeah.
different things that require different level of work.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right, that's the purpose, is to protect
Yeah.
the redevelopment of that site.
Are you
Yeah,
talking
this
also
whole- this
about,
whole dis-
okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I just,
Kathy is.
no, it's
Bobby,
me.
excuse me, I'm sorry. Mayor Pro
Bobby.
Tem.
I was all right with Chuck, but now you call me Kathy.
No.
It's okay. I don't smell as good as
I was actually
Kathy.
looking at Kathy. I thought that's who he was talking about. In fact, I'm not, no.
So you're talking about lot,
He's like, never mind, I don't hear Kathy.
just, yeah. I'm gonna whisper it into Kathy's ear, and she's gonna ask the question real quick. No, you're talking about the lot coverage and stuff. I'd be very careful about that as well, because if you're talking about pools, or let's just say somebody wants to put a barn in the back that meets their requirement from the house that they built, and they want a driveway that goes to the back. And, I think if we're kind of shortchanging ourselves when we can already change that as whatever plans are brought forward.
Of course.
So, yeah, I know those are big numbers, but we also have authority over those big numbers. So I just don't want to cut our nose off, spite our
Yeah.
face.
Well, when you say we have authority over it, what do you mean?
Well, I'm just saying, if somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to put in a parking lot behind
Yeah,
my house and
right.
cover 3/4 of an acre
Right.
in concrete, we should have the authority to,
You don't. You don't have any site plan control.
well, you got drainage control. And if the drainage
Yeah.
is going to have to be a problem with all that concrete back there,
Yeah.
then you do have a problem.
Sure do.
So that's why I'm looking at it, is that,
What-
I just, like my house, you've gone to my house.
Yeah.
It's fairly decent
Yeah,
size, and
yeah.
it takes up most of the lot. It's
Yeah.
got a basketball court in the back, got
Yeah.
an entertainment area and a pool. there's not much grass left.
Yeah,
so-
well, no, that's a good point. See, that's what I was trying to figure out in my own mind. So you're a good example. Well, you know, what's the lot coverage in your house? And you'd say your house is reasonable. I mean, you have nice place, and nobody would say there's anything wrong with it.
Right.
So, but I just don't have that number, you know, is it 60, 70? I have no
I-
clue.
I would venture to say it's 75% of it.
Okay.
I mean, really and truly, if you totaled up my grass area, it's not a whole lot.
I think
I would
there's
say it's lower.
probably several neighborhood community developments where that would be true,
Yeah.
you know?
But what's your zoning, do you know? You're
I-
R20?
I
Or
think it
maybe
might be
not.
R20. I can look it up real quick.
So let's assume you're R20. But you go up into, you know, like we said, RE or some larger areas, that's a lot. So,
well-
but your point is well taken, I agree.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, okay, so Pool Road out there, they're building, Glade Road, they're building 15,000 square foot house. And our code says that you can build a barn back there over a certain amount of square footage.
Yeah, sure.
Well, he's sitting on 2 acres.
Right.
Are we just gonna say, well, you know, and we've knocked it down to 60%, sorry, even though you meet
No.
the.
Well, that's good information. I
Yeah,
mean, that's
and
all
I'm
I'm
not-
saying.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw
Yeah.
my interject,
Okay.
and I'm not saying you guys are
Well, yeah.
wrong, I want to be able to,
Good point. So
Yeah.
let's go off of that back to these numbers. I was talking about now area, like RMF 2,700 per family, 18,000 total. And so now I'm just, let's look at those numbers and those categories down in that area that we've never talked about or paid any attention to, in view of the fact that we could legitimately have a situation, if you have that zoning, houses got wiped out, somebody's gonna walk in here and wanna build it.
Mhm.
Now, this is a point of control. You can make those numbers bigger to, you know, even dealing with that contingency. I'm just looking for any point we have to try to maintain what we want.
no, I agree, Mayor, I agree with you, I just wanted to interject what up.
Are there areas where we currently have these zonings, this RMF?
And that
Yes.
we're,
Yes.
Okay,
But it's a
Bridlewood.
single family right now.
yeah.
but legally, do we still have to have some of this RMF zoning?
Well, that's a good, they exist, a zoning class exists, and there's property in it, and so you could just change it and make it all R20. But the multifamily zoning exists, but it's all been built with single-family housing on it. And so, why would that have been done? Maybe, possibly, someone at one time believed that we needed some percentage of multifamily in this community to represent a concern that was sweeping the region legally. And so they created these zoning classes, but then built single-family in them to kind of address that concern at that time. We don't know.
No, I do know. Here's what happened.
He was here then.
I was here, remember, I'm old.
June 6th,
Back when the airport was
1961.
coming in, I mean, we're going back into the 70s, late 60s and 70s. Land was bought up like crazy by developers. They came in and wanted this kind of zoning, and they were given that zoning. There wasn't anything out here. It was in that vein, and so over the years, things completely changed. It didn't get built that way because the people changed, the strategy changed, what people wanted here changed. The Broadwood example is an example where in the days when we had all the financial trouble, what years was that? Way long, 80s?
80s, yeah.
80s, yeah.
And they had the Resolution Trust Corporation because companies were going bankrupt and land you could buy really cheap. And
Late
so,
80s, yeah.
you know, guys and developers had money, they'd come in and buy it. And so one of these areas, RMF, was bought by a developer. And the city said, I happen to be in office, we're changing the zoning. Bam, we did it. And so they argued about it. So we got into a lawsuit, and in the end, we settled outside of the courts. We didn't go to trial. We settled. It was left RMF. He built a single-family residential, a little higher density than we would normally have had. But, and the RMF was left, which now sets this situation up that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so it's those kind of reasons. So when you got the guys that are trying to do development, because that's their business, no problem with them.
Of course.
They're trying to make money developing, okay, but they don't live here, and they don't care about stuff we care about. So it's that tug of war that goes on.
Yep.
And that's an example of how that happens.
So can we change those numbers? Why not?
We can.
Does anyone, could we see anyone that, in the area that's zoned that opposed to that being changed? Because I know of someone that,
Well, anybody that
in
lives there
favor of
now,
it.
this is irrelevant to them.
right, but like, aren't there some areas off Pleasant Run, and between Pleasant Run and Bransford that have some sort of R10 zoning? Is that what this is?
Oh, you're talking about the R10 and R15?
R10.
I don't know. I mean, so our
So
strategy.
Just in general.
So we have a two-pronged strategy, right? We have said, and I have argued for this, hey, let's go out and talk to citizens, and let's see if the citizens that live there today that own that property would agree. Let's change that zoning. Let's change the zoning to what's actually there.
Yeah.
And if they would, we could do it. So that's one strategy. Now, what we're talking about now, well, we control a lot of the details behind that. So that's just another way
Another layer.
to kind of come at this. Now, maybe we get them all done, maybe we don't. You know, I still, so Chuck, we're, you know, still would like to work on that idea with the citizens. If
Yeah,
they're willing to do it.
and we still have that as
Yeah.
definite option and
Right.
thing that we need to look at, but the argument is that that could create something onerous if we just forced it upon them without.
Oh, yeah, oh, yes.
We're not
yes.
gonna do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so
we
that's-
need their
We need
buy-in.
community engagement and
Yeah,
agreement.
a lot of community engagement, and even with that, there's gonna be arguments on both sides.
Always.
Sure.
Guarantee you, so.
Absolutely.
But it's fair to say, though, that relating to those properties, our previous efforts to, those zoning districts don't exist in our ordinance.
Right.
And so previously, we've adopted changes to our ordinance to say that for those zoning districts, the R20 rules apply.
Yeah.
And so they're already applying the R20 standards. Now, this change we just talked about a few moments ago, where we eliminate the automatic variance for lot width and lot area, will now require those properties, if they were to be slated for development, to come back to the
Come
council
back.
as well.
Well, and if anybody has a question about why that's required, again, back to the Pleasant Run and Thomas corner, where we have a house with a 12.5-foot setback, I'm now pretty much calling the police department daily because we have construction vehicles that are parking there, and people can't get around the corner.
Yeah.
So
And we have
there's not
context.
enough room for them to park in the driveway to actually build the house.
Yeah.
And there's the fear that where there's a single-family home that fits okay on the lot right now nicely and has been there for a while, the house is torn down and 2 homes are built.
Right,
Exactly.
And
That's exactly what happened.
and
That's
there's been no-
exactly-
And there's no action by us other than a permit's issued, and so.
I know.
And
That's
that's,
secondary.
that example would also be on Thomas Road.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion, one page down, and see the part that we changed, amended on here on chapter 3, letter A, where we added, unless a documented plat waiver has been approved. I think it should say by council. I mean, doesn't that come back to, I mean,
Plat waivers are only approved by the city council.
And so in other words, what they're saying is that no matter what the plat says, you must follow the table unless you've previously got council approval to deviate.
okay, I'm just making sure that
Yeah,
that's not
that's fair.
left up to interpretation.
Nope, and so unless you've already got some, because once you get that approval lives on. And so you've already got that approval, you get to keep that approval. But short of that, you must comply with the table regardless of what the plat says.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what this is intended to say. And that's why
That's
J
great.
then was struck, because J was the provision that was trying to clean up all the corner side issues. And we used it to try to address some of our corner side setback issues. But with now this being clarified in the table, it's no longer necessary.
That's
Okay.
right.
Right.
That's why it's struck.
That makes it much cleaner.
Sure does.
J and K.
J, yes.
Okay.
As far as the last section is in chapter 9, we have a statement for building lines, and this again is just to identify that it shall meet the zoning
Right.
that the property has. Staff recommends approval of these changes. Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this at their July 8th meeting, and they also recommend approval.
Very good. Thanks. Any other questions for Ben? I'm gonna open the public hearing if there's not. This is first reading, so there's no action. Public hearing is open. Anyone wish to speak? Just two of you? No? Okay. No one who wishes to speak. I'm closing the public hearing. So as first reading, no action, so we'll move to 6B. And this is first reading in public hearing of ordinance O-19-2089, consideration of amendments to the Land Development Code, specifically Chapter 3, Subsection 3.26, fences, freestanding walls, and screening materials, subsection E, fence and freestanding wall setback requirements.
All right, hopefully this one's a little
Yeah,
quicker.
well, these are interesting discussions, aren't they?
Yes.
They make you think.
They are. So this is in relation to the location on where fences can go, specifically in relation to the property line adjacent to the street right-of-way.
No, we all have our things.
I'm sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
So the first part we're going to talk about is in relation to front yards. Currently, we authorize encroachment into, let me read that again. Oh, yeah, we allow for a fence to be as close as the required front setback. So in the R40 district, it's a 40-foot setback. A fence can go all the way up to that 40-foot setback.
Yeah.
The house may be 20 feet behind that fence. And based on direction given by the council, I think the intent is to say that the fence in the front cannot extend closer than the front facade of the house itself.
Yeah.
So that's the proposed change, so it be located, shall not be located beyond the front facade of the primary residential structure. The conditions under A through D, those all still remain in effect. That's talking about material requirements, what the front yard is, and then D is the big one. There's an exemption for when your property is 40,000 square feet or larger. That does allow a fence all the way up to the front property line, but it cannot be more than 25% opaque. So it does have to be a wrought iron open design for that.
I thought that was 2 acres that we allowed the fence in the front. Remember up on Cherry Lane?
It was 40, that was an R30. It was R40 that allowed, you can do it, but you can't do it in R30.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the land area, you need 40,000 square feet.
Yeah,
to
okay,
qualify.
I understand.
Yeah.
That's great.
So then with corner side yards, this had several different scenarios, and it would authorize the location depending on what is adjacent to it. This council did make some changes last year to increase that, but the direction now is basically to have it read the way that the front yard requirements read previously. So no fence shall be able to be closer than the required street side yard. And so in an R40 district, it's a 40-foot setback. And that'd be for any and all types of fences. I think
No fence greater than 30 inches.
correct, yeah. R20 would allow a 30-foot setback. Again, that's only on that street side. The front cannot be forward of the front facade, but then on that side, they can meet the required setback off of that property line.
Yep.
So all this A through D, the different types of scenarios, those all go away.
Let me ask the question. Under E1B, on a corner lot, a house shall be deemed to face on that street on which it has the least dimension unless otherwise determined by the building official. What's the significance of that or consequence of that?
So the easiest way to identify the front is when you're on a corner,
Yeah,
you take the one that's of the least dimension, so the more narrow side.
but.
The reason for that is because it allows more flexibility with your other setback requirements.
Bigger backyard.
Your backyard is bigger, and so if you take a backyard off of the side, and then you have a front, going from the narrow sides
Yeah.
both ways,
Okay.
then all you're left
Yeah.
with is a very
So
narrow
it-
area to build a house.
So it makes a difference on that side that's the interior side. Because if it's on a corner, it's on a street, both on 2 sides.
Correct.
And on that street sides, it's going to have the full setback of 30 feet or whatever.
Right.
But it does make a difference if how it's oriented, because that interior side
And the-
may be a back or a side, right? So
Yeah.
that's,
Right.
okay.
It also
But the
makes a
street,
difference on the rear, too.
yeah, the rear.
If you took the
yeah.
longer side and made the
Yeah.
rear yard then the back of the house, you'd have no rear yard.
Yes,
Even though houses that are traditionally built that way
Right.
will often
Right.
face the side yard, the
yeah,
corner side,
yeah.
for
But
definition of
yeah.
setbacks.
But we've covered, what I was sitting here just going through all the scenarios, from a setback standpoint, we've really covered it pretty simply now that, hey, we're referencing off of street waterways now. I don't care what, if it's front or back, if it's street waterway, you're going to full setback, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's right.
yeah, okay.
When you're on a corner though, and the house is built, so there are some houses in fact, in my neighborhood, where they're
An
they're
angle?
built, they're really built, along both sides.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the entrance is on the corner.
Corner, yeah.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
you know,
And
with
I
the
think that's one of the
circular drive.
scenarios where the building official can make a determination.
Sure,
But he's
Yeah.
defining front for the purpose of setback and
Yeah.
zoning,
I
not
understand.
for the purpose of access.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's why in some developments, if you have a chance to do a PUD, it's often looked at as a way, as an issue, to make your corners a little bigger,
yeah,
because you want that openness, and usually when those houses are built, it's harder to accommodate that look of
Sure.
openness.
I agree.
Okay, I got a simple question for you. Okay. What's the definition of subdivision? And I'm asking that for a reason, because that's an exception in here.
For the subdivision perimeter fence?
Yeah.
So subdivision, well, there's multiple entries for that
Trick
definition.
question.
A residential subdivision would be, a large development. Basically, you're creating a neighborhood, it's your subdivision.
Can I have 2 lots and have a subdivision?
You can have 1 lot and have a subdivision under plating
Wow.
law.
Wow, that's even bigger than I expected.
So under plating,
Oh, interesting.
a subdivision is just a lot.
Yeah.
So if you do a single lot plat, that's a
Yeah.
single lot subdivision.
Well,
That's under-
then reconcile for me, we used the word subdivision to cite the exception for these walls.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we are not including a single lot subdivision for that.
How do I know
So you
that?
need to define.
How do, yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I asked the
Must say-
definition.
must
Because
say
there is-
multiple lot.
Because a single lot has to meet the merits on its own
Okay.
for allowance for a fence.
Yeah.
A 20-lot subdivision, you're going to have multiple properties along
Yeah, I
Glade Road,
understand.
let's say,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
developer and the entire neighborhood is going to take benefit of a perimeter
Sure.
subdivision
I-
wall.
I'm
That's
just-
not the same scenario as a single
In my
lot.
old age and my skepticism, I've watched people do things to get it around rules by loopholes, right?
Yeah, so,
And,
All you should do is just change the wording, tighten it to clarify that a subdivision for this purpose is defined as, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A 20-lot development or a development beyond a small collection of lots. Some way to clarify so that someone doesn't argue they're, by virtue of the definition of subdivisions, is the point. So I think it's pretty easy to do
Do we
that.
have it defined anywhere in the code?
well, the definition we have for subdivision is division of any lot, tract, or parcel of land into 2 or more lots or sites.
so
It
two,
has
yeah.
more to it. but-
Okay, so, but I suspect that we would say 2 is not adequate for this purpose.
all right.
4 may not be adequate.
Yeah, I know, so it's, I don't know what is.
Just say a subdivision
Most of the,
greater than,
well, it's hard because we have some subdivisions that are less than 10 lots.
Yeah, I mean,
You have a cul-de-sac coming in and you have 5 or 6 lots around it.
The example would
They
be
could-
Carmel East.
Yeah, I mean, they could, well, Carmel, yeah, that's a pretty good example.
But it only has 2 lots facing the major road.
And that's the only part that would be considered the subdivision and perimeter fence.
Not even behind, because in my neighborhood, for instance,
Yeah, well, that still is, but that's usually backyards and we allow fences there already.
it's where they come to the corners when you look down the block.
When we're talking about
Well,
corner
I-
allowance.
Yeah, that's where the
I'm
fence is, but
yeah.
how many lots is Carmel, did you say?
I think it had 11 to start with,
11,
and then we
yeah.
added
Yeah,
5 more,
it's down to about 11.
16,
Um,
or maybe it was less than that, yeah.
It was 9 to start with.
Was it 9 to start? Okay, 9 plus
9 to-
5, so
And then they
14.
wanted to put 6
Yeah.
more.
Okay.
We cut it down to
But,
4?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
So it'd just be that stretch along Glade would be considered the perimeter subdivision fence, which would be allowed on the property line. Because the rest of them, that's their backyard, and we already allow.
right, just because of the nature of the subdivision. I keep thinking of the case, well, okay, some guy might get the bright idea, I've got 2 lots here and I want a fence around the edge. So I want to say that's a subdivision.
I mean, it may be where it includes the construction of a new street.
Or you can say some measure, 4 lots or greater or whatever. Because
Yeah.
really, the only access point that's in contention is where the street right-of-way is at the subdivision entrance. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, in a 2-lot subdivision, you may not be building a new street. You may be building along an existing
Well,
road.
but you could go buy land and it'd be on an existing street, and I could do that. I could say,
That's
I'm
why
buying
his
2 lots.
Ben's suggestion was only where a new road is constructed as part of it, or
Oh.
some standard like
Yeah.
that.
Okay, yeah, something like that. Anyway, yeah, whatever makes sense, but that's the, we made the point of what the concern is. Can we get,
Yeah.
can we get around it?
I'll
Yeah.
I'll try and come up with
Okay.
some options.
Okay.
Do it.
The only, well, I did almost forget, the Planning and Zoning Commission just wanted to add a statement saying that those or conditions A through D under the front yard is also applicable with the corner side yards.
Mhm.
I think that was obvious anyway, but this just makes it clear. And then finally, well, there was a minor change in that paragraph, the top paragraph, but the final regulation, it's a new regulation for fence replacement. We know that there are fences that are will become non-conforming.
Yeah.
And so this would allow for an existing fence to be replaced as long as it does not increase the non-conforming nature for both location and design. Any change on either of those will require compliance with the above regulations.
So if somebody's just repairing their fence, in their mind, like maybe they think they're just repairing their fence, but they are making technical changes to it as well, like some design that might impede visibility or something, do they always come through the city to get a permit, or are they supposed to, but maybe they do, maybe they don't?
Yeah, that's a
I'm
couple
not trying to
questions.
point fingers, I'm just asking out of curiosity, like what's the process and how does it normally
So
happen?
if you have a wood fence and and a couple panels, slats fill out and you're putting new
Right.
ones up, does not require a
That's simple,
permit.
okay.
If you are replacing it completely, but it's all the same design, same location, that does require a permit.
Okay.
Very straightforward for us. Where this will potentially come into play is if they have a wrought iron fence that they want to become a solid fence.
Got it.
If it's not already in the correct location, they will have to move it to be in the correct location.
Or they want to move it out a foot or do something else to it to make it increase the degree of nonconformity.
Right, if it's already wood and they keep it wood, but they want to increase the non-conforming,
Or the
can't
height.
do that without special use permit.
Yeah.
The only question I think that should be asked, and I think this is perfect, the only question is, traditionally in this kind of language, there's a provision that says, if the fence is damaged more than 50%, then it's required to comply with the standard without the existing nonconformance continuing.
I thought we had that
Do you
somewhere.
want that? Well, we do, but not for
Okay.
fence, not for this issue.
Oh, okay.
Why,
So-
yeah, why not?
All right.
Well, that's what I'm saying, this is where, if you want it, that's where you'd have a sentence in there that says, if the replacement is more than 50% of the area of nonconformance, then it has to be brought into conformance. And so and what they're implying here is, if your fence is in need of replacement, you can go put new panels on it, and as long as you don't change its location, or its height, or its type, you're okay to leave it there. And what I'm saying is, in a standard like this is usually where you apply some rule that says, if the whole fence is getting replaced,
Yeah, make it conform.
should you make it conform? And so that cuts both ways. There are people that have fences that say, I've had that fence forever, and so I'm just replacing it where it was. No big deal, no harm, that's what this allows. And then there's others that would say, well, no, if you get to that point, right now, leave your fence, it's harming nobody, but it doesn't comply. But if it comes a time when that fence is done, is it brought into compliance?
That's right,
So-
yeah, it's a kind of a strategy question to me. I mean,
cuts both
when we when we have things that are non-conforming, we really want to set policies that will require it eventually to come into conformance, right? Which is
Yes.
kind of what you're saying. This,
Yes.
this doesn't provide for that.
The one, though, way that it does bite you a little bit is that someone who has a fence that is fallen into disarray
Yeah.
and is asked, why aren't you maintaining that fence? They say, well, because I don't want to have to move it. And so this allows them to replace the fence where it stood and leave it alone and be no better off but no worse off. The provision that says if you reach a certain threshold, you have to be brought into compliance requires them to give up what they perceive they have. And so that's why sometimes it's a bit of a challenge. I'm just giving you both sides of it.
Yeah.
But usually that's where you put that provision
Yeah.
in this paragraph.
I personally think it ought to be there.
Yeah, if a kid's buy a car and they have a couple panels knocked out, no big
Yeah,
deal.
yeah.
If they replace boards from time to time, no big deal.
Yeah.
But if they wholesale say this fence is done, I'm replacing it,
Yeah.
Sure.
then that's more than the 50% or 75% or whatever threshold you use, you then require compliance. They'd move it back to the primary structure front.
And there still is the option to request a special use permit
To get around.
for them to keep it.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
they could apply for that, yeah.
Okay.
Just a thought.
But I would tend to opt into something that does eventually require it to not to take away the non-conforming.
Especially since
Yeah.
we can still
Yeah,
issue a special
a
use
way to
permit
get around
in
it, yeah.
certain cases.
Oh, you could always
if
do
needed.
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
but that, I mean, that seems to be the direction we're going everywhere else.
Yeah.
I don't see why we would
Yeah.
do it differently here.
I agree.
So it's use the 50%,
Yeah, I
That's
made a
standard,
note,
right?
50% threshold.
that's all I have.
I have some aerial photos if you needed to think about visually, but it sounds like you have it pretty well in hand. Staff recommends approval. This did go before the Planning and Zoning Commission. They recommend approval. They just had me add that one
Yeah.
notation for the
Okay.
repeating of those 4 conditions.
I got a question. I don't know what page this is. That picture, can you see that?
Yeah,
That
that
part-
will have to change. I didn't
Yeah, okay.
propose anything because all that is just making sure
Yeah.
that it's to reflect the changes that get
Yeah,
approved.
I just circled that one section is gonna have to change.
Yeah,
it looks-
Okay,
Yeah, so I highlighted it, will require changes,
okay.
but it's all just going to be reaction to what is
Okay.
approved.
Yeah.
Very good. We done?
Ben, thank you for all
Thank
that
you.
work.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
There's
good.
a lot of time and effort into that, thank you.
Okay, I want to open a public hearing. Public hearing is open.
No, sir.
Have no cards? No one wish to speak, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. That was the first reading, so there's no action. We now move to item 7A, reading in public hearing of resolution R-19-4407. Resolution R-19-4407, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Colleyville, Texas, passed pursuant to Section 26.04 and 26.05 of the Property Tax Code of the State of Texas, approving a proposal of the intent to set property tax rate at 0.306807 per $100 valuation for fiscal year 2020 and providing for an effective date. Whereas the tax assessor collector for the City of Colleyville, Texas, the city has calculated the amount of the effective tax rate and the rollback tax rate pursuant to Section 26.04C of the Property Tax Code of the State of Texas. And whereas pursuant to Section 26.04E of the Property Tax Code, the said tax rate have been submitted to the City Council, and whereas it appears necessary to adopt a tax rate of 0.306807 per $100 of valuation. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the City Council does hereby, by the approval of this resolution, state its intention to adopt a tax rate for the fiscal year 2020 of 0.306807 per $100 of valuation. The fiscal year 2020 tax rate will be adopted at the City Council meeting to be held on September 17th, 2019. Section 2, that the 2019 tax roll as certified on July 25th, 2019 by the Chief Appraiser of Tarrant Appraisal District is adopted and that the basis for the fiscal year 2020 proposed tax rate. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect from and after the date of its passage, and it is so resolved.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. tonight's resolution is kind of the first formal step in terms of our tax rate and budget for the next fiscal year 2020, which begins October 1st. The budget process for the staff begins back in March, and we host a staff kickoff meeting. We kind of talk about vision and goals and the council's goals and how that will incorporate into our work in the budget process. Have a lot of meetings and different plans and planning meetings, and that kind of culminates in the summer and the early fall whenever we finally get the certified values and the calculated tax rates for the tax rolls. And so this is kind of that first formal action that we're asking the city council to approve tonight in terms of that budget process. As the mayor mentioned, Chapter 26, the Texas Property Tax Code requires that the city comply with the truth in taxation laws. Part of that law is the calculation of the effective tax rate, which the effective tax rate is the rate at which the city collects the same amount of property taxes from the current fiscal year to the next fiscal year, excluding new growth. So basically, the city brings in the same amount of tax revenue, except for homes or different structures that were built during that time period. So we've calculated the effective tax rate. Our tax assessor collector does that for us. There's a certain formula they follow, and that rate is calculated. It also requires that we provide notice of proposed property tax rate. And so we've prepared that notice. It's in your packet. If this resolution is approved tonight, then we will publish that notice in the Star Telegram for the public noticing portion. Your approval tonight of this does not set the tax rate, but it sets in motion the ultimate approval of the tax rate in September, the second meeting in September, along with the budget and other items that are a part of that process. Good news, we are recommending approval of the effective tax rate. So we calculated that, and we're recommending approval of that. So you can see on the screen that effective tax rate is 0.306807 per $100 valuation. That's the effective tax rate for fiscal year 2020. That will be the second consecutive year that the city council has approved the effective tax rate, which is a pretty big accomplishment. Huge accomplishment of the city council. So we set a financial strategy of the adoption of the effective tax rate, and if we need to increase the tax rate to bring in more revenue to fund certain activities, then we will. But we've constructed the proposed budget in a manner that we don't believe that we need to do that. So we are confident that we can set the effective tax rate and accomplish all the city services that we currently provide and more for next fiscal year. So you can see on the screen that this will be the effective tax rate. That's our recommendation. And with the approval tonight, it'll kind of set in motion, as I mentioned, all the other items that kind of lead up to the ultimate approval of the tax rate and budget for next fiscal year.
Right. Well, I commend this council, this body, and the city staff for getting this accomplished. This is really quite huge, and I think pretty rare. And it can only be done because you guys do a great job. We're very blessed in this city. Property values are rising. We pay cash for everything. I mean, there's not any cities that can go through that, or very few cities that can go through that litany of what we can just rattling off how this city runs. We're just a very blessed city, and I appreciate that. And appreciate you guys, all of you, in getting this done. So it's a great accomplishment.
Our staff's awesome.
Thank you, Mark. Any other comments or before I open the public hearing?
It's just a great teamwork to get this done and to continue to focus on running things efficiently. I think to me, that's the heart of what's going on, is that we're providing more services and doing it in an extremely efficient manner. And of course, the mayor keeps telling us that we're running the city like a small company, and I heartily agree with that.
Yeah.
And not only just upper staff, but also other people in other departments. The way they've worked their department to help out with the staff, and the staff is they're very involved with each other in each department, and I think it's neat because it reminds me of even like my business. You got the different departments and they work together and it works as a team as you go up. And this is like a business, and
Yeah.
super proud of our staff.
Well, what's great to me is everybody has to be in alignment up and down the staff to do this because,
Absolutely.
you know, costs go up. Healthcare costs went up 7%, 6%. So that's a real cost increase. So to do this, something else has to go down. And we expect delivering the same services. So there's an awful lot of trade-offs going on that the management can't do on their own, but the people that are down there doing the work have to do that are spending the money. And that just means there's a lot of alignment, and that's what I so much appreciate. There's alignment on this council, there's alignment with the staff, there's alignment all the way down to every employee.
The other thing is we're providing increases. We've provided our police and fire, or actually all staff. We're aligned with other cities in the area. And we're not cutting staff, we're not cutting salaries, we're respecting our staff.
And George, to add on top of that, not only that, we've got, let's just be honest, Colleyville's blessed. We got money in the bank. We got reserves up to 150 days.
Yep.
I mean, we are doing it the right way. And you know what? It may sound like it's bragging, but it's the truth.
It
And
is.
so we're telling the truth that this is a big deal. And our staff there's something to be bragged on, you know, and the hard work we put in as well in some of those meetings. And just, Colleyville's blessed, as the mayor always says.
And I want to say this doesn't happen without setting goals and objectives and the strategy to get there.
Yep.
And following through on that very consistently.
This took years for this to
It takes
happen.
years, yeah. Very good. I'm going to open a public hearing. Public hearing is open. No cards. Anyone wish to speak on this item? See no one indicating, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. The motion is in order.
I move adoption of Resolution R 19-4407.
I'll second.
Have a motion to approve by Councilmember Dodson, a second by Councilmember Wheat.
So,
You open it.
Rigby.
Oh, man.
But I reached.
Sorry, scratch that.
throws her
Councilmember
voice
Rigney. I apologize. That's weird.
Maybe you got your, in the wrong ear.
I was looking this way and she was talking and that's what I.
Well, I reached my microphone, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's not.
No, that's okay. My fault. All right. Vote's open. Let's vote. And by the way, after this, I'm taking a 3-minute break, literally 3 minutes.
I was going to suggest.
Okay, good. Okay, show it when it's ready. Motion's approved, therefore the resolution is approved. Thank you. We're in recess for 3 minutes.
When we finalize this out, I expect some dancing this time.
You voted by osmosis.
I know, I was like, wait,